So I decided to record this in between snacking on something and writing. But I don't mind time skipping basic training of characters. Because I think I've gotten just to the point where if you make a character a certain age, you don't really expect to see their basic training front and center. Even with Uplift Protocol, I did a little bit of that, but not to the point or the extent of, say, some stories go chapters and chapters and chapters of building these characters up and like, oh, I have to go through the whole bit of training. I got to show that training so that way the reader takes this character more seriously or something. In this reader's case, I honestly prefer people gloss over that stuff. Maybe it's because, when I went through basic training in the Navy, I got a sense of, what went into it and how it changed me, or basically how it reflected on my skills eventually. But I guess when it comes to my entertainment, I don't need people to show me how X, Y, or Z a character is. Just tell me a story. Um, that and so many books do have this kind of thing where, oh, the character has to learn these things and we have to make sure to show every step of the process. Um, my guess is it's easier to do that in movies. Like you can have like a little quick training montage, or show them like learning throughout a couple of movies. Say if it's a trilogy or whatever. But honestly, books and other things have the advantage of like we can gloss over all this stuff, and then you can have a little bit of a flashback if you want. But honestly, basic training of everything doesn't really interest me all that much. Um, I guess it's just because with all the parts that people focus on with training the character up, they could be focusing on different mysteries in the story rather than like unless the basic theme is like with Ender's Game where it shows like what they're legitimately training these kids to do the jobs of fully kind of set up soldiers and things like that, like the whole child soldier thing. But that's one of the few exceptions I've seen so far for stuff I've read where he managed to make that interesting. But 9 times out of 10, I don't see basic training sequences as very interesting at all. It's just something with me where it's just like, it just doesn't click with me. I'm just like, okay, if I'm going to have some training in there, it'll basically be a couple lines off to the side to where it's like, okay, yes, the character is going to go through this and do these things. But the way I reference it is like, yes, the Debbys have training rooms. They go through certifications and stuff like that, but I'm not going to actually show that page for page because I want to get into the heart of the mystery of the bad guys versus the good guys, that sort of thing. Um, and also it kind of helps allude to like say I used Rune as the example where he worked out in the training facilities at the Legion, you know, HQ, so he could acclimate himself to the new vibrations of magic that were around him, and that way you make sure the character does go off to the side and do things they need to do to acclimate to something, but you don't have to um, basically sidetrack the reader with it. Again, this is just my personal preferences. That's all it really is. Some people gobble up the basic training angle. Some people enjoy the complete mismatch of completely green characters versus seasoned characters, and the green characters manage to basically escape with hardly any kind of issue. It again, it just depends on the reader. Um, Everybody has their own level of like, I'm gonna suspend my disbelief for X, Y, or Z, and it looks like I honestly, depending on the wheelhouse, my suspension of disbelief is more malleable towards certain things than others. Like, if I'm going to see a kind of like a more military sci-fi bent to something, I don't really need to see their basic training unless it's very, very central to whatever the story is doing. But then again, it's not my preference. I rather see the soldier in their prime doing whatever their specialty is to catapult the story forward. Like over there, you'll have your demolitions guy. Over there's the medical expert. Then you have your leader. Then you have the scout. Then over there's the sharpshooter. That sort of thing. So that way, it gets me into the thick of the action quicker. Now, if it was like a say 16-year-old protagonist, then yeah, you pretty much expect like, oh, here comes the rather elaborate training montage that could last like half a book, or more, depending on what the person's going for. So, yeah, I guess the teal deer, if you decide to go through this whole thing, everybody has their own level of suspension of disbelief and their own preferences and what they want to see and what they don't want to see in a book, and also what kind of tropes that they're more interested in or themes that they're more interested in comparison to everybody else. So, there you go, everybody. Have a good day.